Yeah, I'm waiting for YouTube to. Yeah. I think we're live. Yeah, my system says live, but if any of you guys watching see us, just like say something, because obviously YouTube's a bit odd with these things. Okay, cool, cool. All right, yeah, okay, we're live. Sotek, are you live on your end? Awesome. All right, cool. Episode 6. Good, good. Apparently they can't hear you. 1 second. Yeah. So this is on my side. My output is not playing you. It's a bit weird. Um, Properties. Yeah. That's a bit weird. No, it's my side. It's my side. So it should be there. No. There. Okay. Can one of you guys say something?
Hello.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, I've got an audio. I've got audio now.
Okay, great. All right, we'll take it from the top. All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lorebeards. We've got a wonderful Sunday streak going here. Thank you all so much for joining us. I am LoremasterOfSotek, as per usual. We've also got Nathan, as always, here with us. How you doing today, man?
Hey guys, how you all doing? I'm good, bro. How are you?
Great, great. And for this week, our special guest, who was super duper wonderful, coming in on short notice, is the one and only, the very, very legendary Baldermort.
Good evening. So, hello, and I don't think I deserve that epithet. I'm the junior of us three. Thanks a lot for having me along, gents.
You absolutely deserve it. You're the only human being that has ever made me genuinely super emotional over a tank, because your storytelling skills are far superior to anyone else in this room.
Yeah.
Oh, you big girl. No. Only joking. No, it's all a bit of a laugh, isn't it? If you can't cry over your favourite ride, what can you cry over, eh?
Aye.
I don't even like tanks. Yeah, I'm just getting
Take that
emotional over a Land Raider.
Take that back right now.
Never. I'll die on this sword and board this sword and board hill I have. All, them and their newfangled robots and technology. But
tank.
We do got this week's a little more casual. Thankfully, for our sanity, there weren't any massive bombs dropped on us by Games Workshop or Creative Assembly this week. It was just kind of there was stuff happening this week, but it was mostly just kind of a trickle of some Cathay stuff, which we've done plenty of, and there will be more to come. So we're going to let Cathay take a week off and rest.
Yeah.
But there is plenty more to discuss, and we're actually going to be hitting some kind of funny things to. In addition to just talking about some random nonsense. But before we get too far into it, just a quick heads up and reminder that Tale of Two Gamers is due next week for anyone that's participating in that. This round is to paint a unit. The unit can be one guy or it could be 100 guys. It doesn't matter. But if you want your minis to be showed off and you want to participate for Lorebeards, that is due next week before we go live. So just a reminder. And then let's talk. What's everybody been up to? Nathan, we'll start with you. What have you been up to the last week?
Well, not a lot. Hobby-wise, I've been sanding down a lot of Chaos Shields to make them nice and remove the undivided iconography, because obviously I'm doing some Sineshi Warriors. And then I finally got into my pile of shame and started looking at all the Hedonites because I absolutely love them. So I've actually got a box right in front of me because I've been looking at how I can convert them and turn them into Warhammer Fantasy. And I've got a lot of really cool ideas. So I've been literally back and forth with these guys. I've been posting on Twitter regarding the Slangors because I want to turn them into Chaos Spawn and so on. So I've just been like hobbying really hard and writing up a list because if I'm going to finish up an army, I might as well make a nice competitive list with it too.
Yes, Warriors of Kai.
Oh yeah,
It's beautiful
yeah.
work.
Man, I really want Games Workshop to just release the Cathay 8th edition PDF. Just do it as a PDF and let us play with it.
Oh god, yeah.
After they said that they've actually done it, it's like, well, let me have it. I'll pay $40. Give it to me.
I literally, I think I tagged them as soon as I read that on a tweet. I said, like, I will give you a kidney. Just let me see the rules.
What about you, Baltimore? What have you been up to lately? Anything exciting or any hobby stuff? Or what have you been up to these days, my dude?
Well, generally, I'm really headlong into content creation, as you know. But on Wednesday, because Wednesday I go down to my local club, and I managed to absolutely give a swirly to the Fighting First.
Nice.
The Sons of the Lion, and I kicked the living poo out of them with my Necrons. It was very enjoyable.
That's delightful. I love any story that ends with Space Marines losing to Xenos. That's a great story. That's my favorite kind of story.
Round 2, the hand flashed out, and I took it and shook it with a big shit-eating smile on my face.
How are the Dark Angels since they're... because they've just recently had a supplement released.
Yeah, they did. They're actually quite good in my estimation. Obviously, they're not what many people would call top tier, but they're sturdy. They've got some good stratagems. Unfortunately, the lad had just taken out his old army, was having a look at it again. I just chucked together some Necrons and played them, and we had a look at the army afterwards. And he's going to magnetize a lot of his stuff. And obviously, I have extolled the virtues of the melter. Melty, and he's going to change over a load of weaponry, etc. It's a great army. It looks fantastic. It's just more of a 5th edition army than it is 9th. So he's having a look at it again, and yeah, he's getting out again and seeing what he can do with it, and changing a load of stuff over. So it's really good fun actually chatting about it afterwards, because yeah, I absolutely dunked on him as a Garrod went into his central line, and yeah, it got bad. It got bad. That's
insane. So was it a proper 5th edition army then?
Well, I mean, it was from that era, and his thinking was from that era.
Wow.
So he was putting in a lot of heavy bolters, a lot of heavy flamers, etc., which is all very nice. We had a load of bikes as well. And I said to him, look, you've got all of the infantry killing ability you need. What are the flyers, what are the land speeders doing? Where's your anti-tank? And he kind of looked at me like, oh, yeah. And, you know, it's not a tank edition, but there are some nasty little things out there. Yeah. Like I tore in multiple new orifices with the, one of the new Necron, basically, how to put it? Sorry, it's a bit late for me. I do apologise on a Sunday. One of their new blasting droids, tool thing, like a reanimator.
Oh,
and
okay.
It just tore him many new orifices. I really enjoyed that. It was good fun.
I like how...
Sounds like it was a good game.
Well, no, it was. Again, we had a good laugh, which is the most important thing. Then we had a great chat about it. Then after that, we went to the bits boxes, threw them all open, got out a load of melters, etc. And he's going to go off and kit bash. He's more of a hands-on kit bashy guy. I'm more of a player and obviously a bit of lore. A bit.
Yeah, just a smidge.
A little bit.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
So, what did you do this week, young man?
Honestly, for me, I've been working on getting my ghosts painted up for Tale 2 Gamers. So chain rasps are just about done. I was still emotionally recovering this week from last weekend's tournament. Having to fight back-to-back Morathi was just... it was not a good time. Like, I won one of those games, but only because the scenario... if it had been, like, literally any other scenario, I would have been tabled. But Yeah, so most of the Texas crew, the people that I normally play with and stuff, are off at the Houston tournament, tournament in a city south of here, a few hours. But I was not able to go to that because I had prior engagements. But things are going well. I've been kind of up to my neck in going through the older Cathay lore to kind of compare and contrast. Just did a video on like the Celestial Dragon Emperor and how he's changed from the old lore, which is a lot of fun reading, a lot of going back into some super old stuff, and just enjoying the absolute delight that is Games Workshop not keeping track of their own lore and changing it every 5 years. But it's been really fun trying to like tie all those stories together and figure out what Creative Assembly and Games Workshop are up to currently. So excited to see more from them. But yeah, it's mostly just been I've been doing some AOS reading too. They just released the new books, so I've been reading the new Auric War Clans and Stormcast Eternals books, and dreaming about when Night Haunts will get a new book, because our our book is the third oldest now. Jeez. But one day. All right. Great. So sounds like everyone's been busy, which is awesome. And let's go into our first topic for today, which is going to be not probably super long, but we're just going to kind of talk about it because it's kind of on a lot of people's minds with Total War Warhammer 3 slowly but surely approaching, which is ogres. We got to talk about them ogres. So as everybody probably knows, it's 99% confirmed that Ogre Kingdoms are the early adopter bonus for Total War Warhammer 3. So if you pre-order the game, or I think buy it in the first week after it comes out, you'll probably be getting Ogres for free as a campaign erase pack. And we're just going to talk about them a little bit today. Not anything too crazy, because obviously we don't have any like super big info. And Ogres are, of course, in Total War Warhammer 2 as mercenaries, which I think we all have figured out seems like it was basically just a test drive, or just it was that first little hit of crack just to get you on the ogre train. Then they'll be like, oh, look, here's the full race.
We've all been there. We've even had them in my high elf army, disgusting as it was. I had to try them out.
And they're just fun. Like, they're super fun. And I've actually been having fun trying to do thematic builds with them. Like, I think my favorite one to do is play Sartosa with RNS Assault Spite, but to give her like a living army, so to have the least amount of dead guys as possible. Give her the ogre man-eaters with the pistols, because they look like pirate ogres. And plus, in the lore, RNS Assault Spite's first mate was actually an ogre. her enforcer. So it all lines up. But Nathan, what are you kind of like looking forward to, and do you have any like what's the primary thing you've got buzzing in your head right now for ogres?
See, I I played against them extensively on the tabletop, because 8th edition they were one of the top tier armies.
They're very good.
I'm waiting to see how they'll translate that power, because let's be very honest. You remember lead boachers back in the day of 8th? They were
oh yeah,
they were special.
Too many shots.
You know what I'm really curious about more than anything? How they're gonna do Greasus, because like it's Greasus and what, like 1,000 Noblars moving him,
Yeah, Greasus is my spirit animal, and who I'm hoping to cosplay as. Yeah, he had such a bizarre model. Like, it's a glorious model. The fact that Greasus has decided he's literally too rich to walk. But I'm curious how. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm curious how they're going to animate it, because, like, from a lore standpoint, Greasus is so over the top. He's so opulent that not only is he carried by a tide of Noblars, but they also dump out gold in front of him. So he's always walking on a road of gold. So they dump out gold, and then Noblars in the back pick it up and run it back to the front, which is just like, I don't know to what extent they're going to do that. I would love to have the gold pouring. But like, I don't know, like, I'm kind of hoping we get the full Noblar treatment, just like maybe if we see the Palanquins of Nurgle, we get the big old stone things being carried around by a swarm of Nurglings. I really want to see those.
That'd be cool. That'd be really, really cool. I don't know. What do you think? Like, because obviously we've had different types of factions and so on. Do you think Horde or pseudo Horde like the Vampire Coast, or?
I could see them. I don't think they're gonna do Hordes ever again. Like, I think actual Hordes are like dead forever. That's not anymore. I think they tried it and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
they tried.
It's not as compelling at all.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, like you don't get any unique buildings. You don't get any like incentives to go particular places. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, there's just no it doesn't add anything that a pseudo horde does not have, and it's just way more fun.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's just like a game of Pac-Man, though, isn't it? When you're playing hordes, nom 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 nom. I don't find it as interesting as when the sections where you've wandered your army off about half the map away, and all of a sudden, right in your homelands, a rebellion happens, etc., etc. All of those fun management and deployment things you just don't get with hordes. And that's all I'm qualified to say. I'm going to shut up now.
No, I absolutely agree. I think most of the community would. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us, after seeing what they did with the Beastmen, are just finally at the point where it's like, it's fine if it's a pseudo horde. Like, okay, maybe ogres can only they have like structures and buildings in the Ogre Kingdoms, and then maybe they have to be like special settlements where they go elsewhere. But honestly, I'm kind of expecting the ogres just to be pretty normal. I think maybe they'll have a lot of mechanics tied around like food, and maybe needing to like have a lot of trade power. But I'm not expecting them to be a horde, in that ogre hordes are kind of a thing, but it's only because they take, they kind of pick up and take everything with them, but they also have a homeland at the same time. And there are notable ogre like settlements within many of the mountain ranges. So I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do it, but a pseudo horde I think would be great. So would a regular faction. I really don't think there's a bad way to do it, as long as the ogres have really interesting mechanics. But just no more Nakais, no more Warriors of Chaos.
Yeah.
Just fix those guys and let's just not do that anymore.
I actually tried to play a little bit as Nakai recently, and I had to give up. I really did.
It's rough.
Yeah.
It is rough. Hopefully that's one of those things they fix one day. But Lizardman, always the guinea pig. But for me personally, I'm also very excited for the ogres. The thing I'm the most curious about is how big are their monsters going to be? Because one of the things I don't think many people appreciate about the ogres is how large they are. If you play Total War Warhammer 2, you're sitting there going like, oh wow, these guys are pretty big. But you got to think that their monstrous mounts are monstrous sized for them. Like when the ogre monsters came out in tabletop, they introduced a new base size because they needed to like upgrade it. Instead of it being 50 millimeters by 100 millimeters, which I think was chariot bases and like old school monsters. For the ogres, they introduced like 100 by 100 or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Mammoth was absolutely storming when it came onto the scene, wasn't it? I mean, it was just amazing.
Yeah, a lot of those
really, really good.
Yeah, and the ogre monsters were so well done that they still hold up really well now, even many years later. The only thing bad about them now is that they're monopose for people that want to run like a lot of them, because you kind of have to do a lot of kit bashing to make them look a little different.
I know, but there's no such thing as monopose if you've got a knife.
That's true.
True.
I am admittedly someone that does not care at all about monoposing, but I know some people in the community get worked up about that.
Hate it. I absolutely hate monopose. Really, really badly.
But then, again, if you've got a knife, nothing is monopose.
I've been working on a lot of, because I got my hands on some 5th edition Imperials, and some of them are monopose, some of them not so much, but like I've been working around because I want to finish off my Aveland army after I'm done with Estelneshi. So I've had to start going and just cutting arms off and legs off just to just rejig it a little bit, It's a cool force and they're cool models, but like I miss the days when everything was just little bits and bobs. Because like the Chaos Warriors, this guy is literally just two pieces. It's literally just his cape in the back and the front torso. There's literally nothing about it. It works for Chaos because it's regimental and they have to look like a moving block, but everything else, you know?
For those unaware, monopose means that the model can only be built one way.
Yeah.
So no matter how many versions of that, model you may have, it all looks the exact same.
Yeah.
Which some people find frustrating, some people don't. And I will say the fantasy models for the rank and file were a little bit worse because they all were designed to just squeeze in next to each other. So they were very boring pose wise compared to what we have nowadays.
Yeah.
But
I know, but imagine the mental breakdown you would have if you had to play Lumines with their daft cowbells and you had to rank them up. No, seriously. You would, honestly, I suggest we get videos and we put them up in people's rooms before they do the bat rep and tell them they have to rank up. And then we just fast forward it while crying from the frustration. I don't usually involve myself in Schadenfreude, but on that occasion, I will. You can't do it with some of the modern models. They're just not built that way.
Yeah, absolutely. They do have more freedom, but at the same time, they can't. I mean, I'm a Night Haunt player. Night Haunts have a very strict amount of space. Like, they're so wispy and all over the place. And, like, it looks cool, but, man, it could be a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And they really like to get caught on each other, which is like Grimgas Reapers. I hate them sometimes.
How's it like to move them? Because when I play Eldar and other such things, as soon as you get to the club, you open your box and it's like, oh god, I've got an hour of gluing. Are they brittle? Do they explode a lot, or are they actually quite sturdy?
Oh no. I have not gotten through a single tournament without at least like 2 or 3 Night Haunts like losing a weapon or something.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Granted, it's the same guys, so I should probably just stop trying to fix them and just replace them and be done with it.
Yeah, fair.
But because like they broke once, and because they're so thin, it's just impossible to get them to behave.
Yeah, I'm an Eldar player, mate. Come on, I know. I know.
But
if you look at them hard.
Yeah, traveling is no longer an issue because I bought. You can kind of see all my carts and stuff back there, but I got a box and I laid down a magnetic sheet in it, and everybody's got magnets glued to their bases, so they all stick. They don't move.
Oh, no. I have tried that, but my problem is I'm slightly clumsy. So while getting them out, if I'm talking to anybody else down the club, which I usually am, I'll try and multitask and do 2 things, talking and chewing gum or moving figures. and then oh, look. Yay, the sword off that one's come off. That'll be so easy to fix.
Yep. So back to our ogres. Really looking forward to the big monsters. I hope they're huge because like a Stonehorn compared to a Stegodon, a Stonehorn is notably larger. And Stegodons are big boys. But we've seen Total War is not afraid to pull in big monsters. I mean, we've got a freaking Dreadsaurian, which is colossal. But so when it comes to the ogres, what like model or unit are y'all the most excited for?
Ooh, tough.
For me, it's Stonehorn. Easily Stonehorn.
Yeah?
I mean, that big fossilized, just it's so badass looking. Like a creature that's so old and hardy that it's like skeleton is exposed and it's literally fossilizing as it's moving around. That's great. I love it.
For me, it would have to be, I might get the name wrong, Iron Blaster?
Yeah, the giant Rhino cannon.
Yeah. I mean, what's not to love? I think it was quite potent back in the day, too. A friend of mine uses 2 in his loadout all the time, and they do a lot of damage.
For me, it's just rank and file, not the monsters. It's always, I mean, I love the big models, they're great, but for me, always, It's the rank and file units which really make it good. Also, another thing is I played Drukhari or Dark Eldar, so I really want good ogres so I can then mutate them into grotesques. So yeah, bring more on to me. What I say. Oh yeah.
Baltimore, are you more excited for the shooty ones, the lead belchers, or the big combat heavily armored ones like the Iron Guts?
I think you know the answer to that. If I want guns, I'll go Warhammer 40k. No, it's the big choppy stand on your head type.
Great weapons.
That's what I want to see.
I need a kill animation of like an Iron Gut and using his gut plate to kill someone. I need it.
Yes.
I need
yes.
it.
Oh yeah, you're not wrong.
Like, we need the belly kills. I'm also looking forward to Scrag the Slaughterer. I cannot wait to see him animated.
Yeah.
Like with the he's got the meat hook hands and he's dragging the giant cauldron behind him. Yeah. I wonder if he'll have animations where he like kills somebody and like tosses them into the pot.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
That would be very cool indeed.
There's so many like possible good characters. Like the ogres didn't have that many characters introduced, but the ones that were all gold.
Yeah, they have a, compared to other 8th edition armies, they have a very small cast. But the 4 that were in the army book, plus the White Dwarf character being Garg Ironskin, very, very good cast. And they each cover a very wide range. The only thing they don't have is a hunter character, which I would not be super surprised to see CA make one up.
True. I mean, wasn't there one for one of the supplements or something? I'm not too sure.
There's like the first hunter, which is Jared the Red, but he's like super duper old and dead, like thousands of years dead. But that hasn't stopped them with some characters. I mean, we've got Vlad and Raponce running around.
You know, would be really curious. I can't remember his name, but it was an ogre that was able to use necromancy, wasn't it?
Yeah. He's not. He was a. God, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He has a name.
Yeah.
It'll come to me at some point. But he was essentially like a lore blurb.
Yeah.
Like when you were reading the book, you know, they'd have those little like paragraphs in italics that were like on the side margin. He's one of those guys. Say what?
I said, you mean the best bit?
Yes, the best bits. Yes, he's a hilarious character. He would be really interesting. I mean, I won't deny that he could make a really, really fun lord or hero, legendary hero. Even just an ogre that's able to like summon zombies or something would be goofy.
Yeah, that is a new one on me. I didn't know about that one. I've got to admit, I'm pitching a tent. That sounds absolutely storming.
Yeah, his entire gist was he was captured by a necromancer who's doing like experiments on corpses and trying to make like a super monster. And the necromancer starved him for months and thought he was too weak to do anything and would just kind of keel over and die. And then when the necromancer got close, the ogre was not as weak as he thought, and he reached forward, grabbed the necromancer, and ate him. But the necromancer was in the middle of casting a spell to defend himself. So when the ogre ate him, he just sort of ingested all of that death magic, or all that dark magic, and it just turned him into a walking, just like a walking radiator of necromancy. So wherever he goes, it's Bra the Slave Lord. That's his name, Bra the Slave Lord. So his whole thing is that wherever he goes, because he's just radiating necromancy, it just makes dead things get up. So, like, he'll walk by a bunch of corpses and they'll just turn into zombies and skeletons. They'll get up and start following him. So he has these giant trains that follow him of slaves, and they're all undead. And he just takes them to the Chaos Dwarves and is like, hey, here, slaves, give me money. That's his whole MO. That's all he does.
Fair. I mean, have you done a video on this chap? Because it sounds like you need to.
I have not. We've talked about him during, like, the Ogre Kingdoms Q&A. We talked about him a fair bit. He's a very weird character because he's not a wizard. That's the really funny part, is he's not actively casting magic. It's just like a weird, it's like BO, but it makes dead people get up instead of smelling bad.
Like Nurgle's rot.
Yeah. Very weird but fun character. I would love to see him appear in some fashion. I would be surprised if he was a lord, but he could make a really fun cameo appearance somewhere or as a hero or something.
It would be fun. It's we need more characters, especially I think when I did my missing legendary character series for the ogres, there's only about 7-ish, more or less, ogres like fully fleshed out in the lore.
If you stretch, you can get to 7.
Yeah.
In 8th edition, the playable ones were Greasus Goldtooth, the Over Tyrant,
Yeah.
Scrag the Slaughterer, who's the big wizard with the cauldron, the pot behind him.
Yeah.
Golgfak Maneater,
Yes.
the mercenary king, and then I'm forgetting his name, but the guy with the giant scythe.
Yeah, the executioner.
The executioner character.
Yeah.
Those are the only 4 legendary lords in the actual book.
Mm.
Garg Ironskin is a 6th edition White Dwarf supplement character who is still considered canon.
Oh yeah, he was riding
being the big monster character.
He had the Rhinox mount, didn't he?
He has a Rhinox that's made out of demon metal. So it's not a real Rhinox. It is it's like a juggernaut of corn, like the demons of corn have, but it's the size and the shape of a Rhinox. So it's like a juggernaut on steroids.
Oh, someone said the name of the executioner. It's Bragg the Gutsman.
Yes, Bragg the Gutsman. Yeah, and that's it. Those are the big 5. There have been like a couple of little guys that have popped up here and there, but those are the guys that like had playable rules that you could easily take on the table.
I think it's because they were getting properly fleshed out. Because what was it? 6th edition, they were mostly used for Dogs of War stuff, weren't they? More than anything.
Ogres were released in 6th.
Yeah.
So Dogs of War had a supplement in 6th, and Ogres released near the end of 6th, if I remember right. And then in 7th edition, they got like a good book. And then 8th edition, they got all their monsters.
Yeah.
Because 8th edition did not add any characters for the most part. It added a lot of monsters. 8th edition was that kind of that time period where Games Workshop was experimenting with releasing very large plastic minis, because they were basically trying to like get people to buy stuff that they didn't have, but which was good and bad for fantasy. 8th edition obviously didn't make it to the end.
My problem with 8th was the magic system. Literally, I'm going to teleport across to the side of your army, cast Purple Sun Azarius and then 2 other things, and that's it.
Oh my god. Dude, why'd you have to bring that up? Why'd you have to bring
I love that.
I'm sorry, lads. I mean, I came back for 8th, got a load of troops, was just about to paint them up, Zerius the crap out of a load of people. I mean, I did horrible, horrible things to people with my elves, and then the bastards went and cancelled the game. I'm not a happy man.
Dude, as a Lizardman player, I played Lizardman I was in the Texas Master Circuit, super duper competitive. Purple Sun, literal nightmare fuel. Lizardmen have like an initiative of like 1, 2, if they're not skinks.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I thought I'd bring it up for old time's sake.
I love that spell so fucking much.
Dude, that spell was one of the worst designs. Like, especially like. I mean, speaking of ogres, that spell would instantly cost them the game. Like, if ogres were not going to be first place or like at the top table at a tournament, it was probably because some asshole took like a dark elf sorceress on a Pegasus, flew 20 inches next to him, and Purple Sun down the line. Like, that's probably what happened.
Oh.
I can't remember off the top of my head how I did it with the elves. I think it was something like teleport or something like that. But I managed to get to the side of his rank and then blow the poo out of this guy multiple times. We played 3 games in an hour.
I love it. I love it.
They were all very similar, though.
You know what, though? It's not fair for me to be like overly like I everybody, at least in my memory, most everybody cheesed. I remember my cheese would you take the Super Slon and a giant unit of Temple Guard, and you take the Lore of Life, so you'd make it where you couldn't miscast, and then you just throw 6 dice at Dwellers Below. It'd be like, that unit dies.
Mate, you filthy bastard.
It was the only way I could beat Skaven. Literally the only way. You'd see a Skaven player and you'd go, okay, Dwellers Below on your Gracer unit, and he'd go, shit. That was the only way to beat him.
Now, you are sitting next to the Skaven Skink Master now.
I hated Dwellers. Dwellers was it got to the point that I had to start like experimenting with finally using Skitterleap to just try and get away from that spellcaster, because if the slan would hit you with Dwellers, you were screwed.
Yeah.
Nathan, have I ever told you my favorite Skitterleap story?
Oh God.
So I was playing.
It's going to be good for you, mate.
I was playing a friend of mine, and we were having like we wanted to do a game where we were just going like all out. So and we were taking like really stupid stuff we'd never taken before. So I took a list that was 4 Stegodons. So I had Lord Mazdamundi, the big Slon on Zlak. Then I had an Engine of the Gods. Then I had a regular Stegodon. Then I had an Ancient Stegodon. So it was just Stegodon City, right, with some like core. And he had a Skaven army, and it was fairly typical. It had a couple of little fun things in it. But the thing I'll never forget is he had this Gracier, and he had Crack's Call, which for anyone unfamiliar, Crack's Call is a spell where you would roll a bunch of dice, and however you'd add them all together, and whatever you rolled, you'd add that, and you draw a line, and everything on that line had to roll a dice against their initiative stat. If you rolled above it, that thing just instantly died. So all Stegodons are like are because they had Skink Riders were like initiative 4, but Mazdamundi was like a 2 or a 1. So really high chance he'd fail it. But so my friend, I move up turn 1. His response is he Skitterleaps, puts the Gracier next to one of my Stegodons, so it's a straight line down all the Stegodons together. 6 dices, Crack's Call, gets it on a irresistible force, draws the line, and it hits the first Stegodon. I roll, kills it. Engine of the Gods passes. Next Stegodon passes. Mazdamundi passes on a 1. He rolls for the miscast, and he rolls a double 1. So the wizard the Gracier just gets eaten by a demon and just dies instantly.
Oh.
Like it was a Hail Mary, but it did not pay off. It was typical Skaven. Typical Skaven.
Wow. Ouch. I felt that.
That was such a goofy game. It's like I remember seeing. Skaven were so hilarious because like you never knew what kind of stupid crap was going to happen.
Oh yeah.
Like I still remember one of my favorite games to watch was it was a tournament, top table. Skaven player rolls for his warp lightning cannon, misfires, it spins in place, ends up pointing down all the rest of the war machines, and rolls a 10 for its damage or its strength. So it just obliterates the entire Skaven war machine line.
Jeez.
It's just like Skaven, just Skaven.
It happens. I mean, if it works though, because the spell Plague is beautiful, right? It can keep jumping on enemies and so on. I was playing a 4,000 point match, myself and Warriors of Chaos versus Empire and Dwarfs. Turn 2, I managed to cast Plague, and I took out 75% of the enemy army because of one Plague, because it kept jumping. At that point, we were like, "Oh, wow, okay."
Yeah, fair. Yeah, it sounds like the old virus bomb versus Orcs situation that got me more than a panning or 2 from my big brother. I used to beat the snot out of me after doing that. Exactly. I had it coming, It was a righteous.
Hey, gotta leave it on the table. Leave it on the table.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I needed a good laugh today.
Yeah. All right, so Ogres, we're all looking forward to it. I think we're probably good to move on. All right, so next up, it's time for Who Would Win? So for today's matchup, we've got a battle of the regenerating fiends. We've got Throgg the Troll King going up against Morgr the Shadowgave. So as before we get polls set up so that chat can participate and vote, let me give you all a brief rundown of our participants here. And just a reminder for Who Would Win rules, they don't get any bodyguards, they can't call for help, it's a fight to the death, and they go in with no prep time, so no Batman scenarios. Please.
Okay, let's see if I can get the poll working for once.
All right, so let's start with Morgr. So we're going to be using Morgar in his the version of him that Total War is based on, which is actually his 6th edition version when he had a full rule set. Because for anyone unaware, in 7th edition, Morgar was downgraded from a lord to a hero, and they stripped out the vast majority of his rules. So we're going to use him in his normal form. So we've got Morgar. Morgar, for anyone unaware, is basically, he is the god of mutation crammed into an itty-bitty little body. Just a little mortal body. And because you have a god shoved into a mortal form, he's completely batshit crazy. But because to him, the mortal world is like, he's basically a 4D creature and you're forcing him onto the third dimension plane. So he's all out of whack. But he's very, very, very powerful and very, very scary. His mutation or his regeneration is insane. Morgar is probably one of the best regenerators in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, in that he can regenerate from just about damn near anything. Obviously, fire works very well against him, but he is very, very resistant to magic or anything that's magical in nature, especially spells, and also missile attacks, so things that come at him from range will not hurt him. Basically, he is such a mutating presence that as an arrow or a bullet or a missile or whatever is moving towards him, it will literally transmute into something harmless before it will hit him, like a butterfly or dust or something. So we've got that. Also, once somebody gets close enough to him, his mutating aura will cause you to mutate. So as you're fighting him, your body will start to go all out of whack. You'll start growing tentacles or third arms or things that are trying to strangle you, or your eyes will turn on or catch on fire or whatever. And the other big things about him, he has a very nasty scream, which is not super fun. Most people don't know this because Total War unfortunately hasn't given him this item or ability, though I hope they do at some point, is that his hair, Morgar kind of has what looks like dreadlocks, and there's a bunch of skulls woven into them, which is why he's often called the Master of Skulls, and it's called his skull weave. But the thing about those skulls is, in the lore, the thing about them is not only are they constantly kind of flowing and there's like new ones appearing and old ones vanishing and stuff, but the thing is that they're always screaming. So they are always shrieking at like this ear-splitting pitch that makes getting close to fighting Morgar very, very difficult, because not only is he terrifying, but the scream is said to be so loud that it's genuinely disorienting. Like fighting him is very difficult because you have this ear-splitting headache from all of these skulls endlessly screaming because they don't have to breathe because they're dead. And then, of course, he has the Brace Staff, which he carries around, and he has something else known as the Stones of Skull Cave, which he keeps on his person. The stones don't really do anything. They're basically just like super anti-magic, but Throgg can't cast, so that's not going to help. And then the Brace Staff also is kind of a hard counter to magic, so that's not really going to help him either. But the big thing about him is that he's surprisingly skilled in melee. He is a constantly mutating form. He is most famous for having a staff in one hand, his giant crab claw in the other. But he kind of is always shifting and growing new appendages as old appendages fall off and other stuff. He's a shifting, nasty... I don't remember the name of that anime movie where the guy, like... Akira! It's like the big bad at the end of Akira. But not quite as large and exploding. But he is going up against another fiend who's very, very good at regenerating. We got Throgg, the Troll King. Throgg is pretty straightforward. He's very big. He's a troll. But unlike most trolls, he's very intelligent. Throgg is fairly smart. He's actually capable of thinking. He's not a stupid idiot. His vomit is the nastiest vomit we know of in Warhammer Fantasy because it is magical vomit. That melts through armor as if it wasn't even there, and it is super effective against pretty much anything. And he's got a big old mallet. It's literally a giant boulder attached to a stick that he smashes stuff with. It's not magical. He just hits stuff hard with it. And his regeneration is also very strong. Throgg has something known as Mutant Regeneration, which is not only is Throgg's regeneration very impressive, but the more he regenerates, the more likely he is to gain mutations that will usually benefit him, like another mouth or another arm or something, but there is a chance it can go wrong. There is a chance that Throgg's mutation could turn him into a demon prince, but there's also a chance it could turn him into a chaos spawn, and he would just instantly die essentially. So, and he's got the Winter Tooth crown, but that doesn't his one magic item, but it doesn't do anything in this matchup. So, with the knowledge of that, and just kind of like a brief throwdown of for those that are kind of like, well, how do they pair up in certain things? They're both about equal when it comes to their ability to parry and hit. Morgar, because he's more like a flailing appendage, like a flailing mass that's very difficult to land strikes on. Throgg is a fairly skilled combatant, despite being a troll. Throgg is stronger, he's larger, and he can theoretically take a hit better. But of course, they both regenerate very hard, and Morgar is pretty much immune to anything that's not going to hit him in close combat. So, with all that in mind, Nathan, how are you feeling?
Before anything, it is important to note, like you said, very intelligent troll. It's not represented in the same way in Total War Warhammer, so if you guys just know him from the video game, like, he is, if you read his books and so on, he is actually hyper intelligent. He for a troll, like, he's human level intelligent, which is quite a lot for a troll.
Terrifying. Can I ask one question, gents, before you go into it?
Absolutely. You can ask all the questions you want.
Oh, we don't have time for that. Throggy, you say that his mutations are generally beneficial to him. Can I ask you to identify why?
So for Throgg, because he's so big and massive, and he's used to having mutations. Like, Throgg's got like an extra mouth on his gut. But the thing about Throgg is his constitution is tough enough that when he does mutate, it's not going to be something, unless the odds are just really against him, because there is a chance he could mutate something that is genuinely bad. But as long as the mutation is not like, something that blocks, like a tube that blocks his airway or something, he's big and strong enough and tough enough that he can kind of just ignore it and keep fighting. But he adjusts quick enough with his mutations that if he were to grow like another arm, or if he grew like a prehensile tail, he would start fighting with those things.
So it would be adaptable within his own adaptations. That's wonderful. Yeah, I've got my ideas then. Cool. Thank you. Not that I've got one, but I've got an opinion.
Oh yeah, and we would absolutely love to hear it.
You don't. Carry on.
So Nathan, what are you thinking so far?
I don't know. Thing is, I like Morgar. I'm a big fan, but his whole thing was him coming back. So in lore, it was pretty much, he was strong and he would mutate things around, but he was easy to take down, because we get it in his lore that he was taken down multiple times and he would just keep coming back. So I wouldn't put him as perhaps one of the best fighters. His mutation stuff would probably be his best weapon, yet that would only probably be beneficial towards Throgg. So I probably have to go for Throgg here. Throgg just sounds like the best fighter. Not only that, but like he can adapt and survive. Morgar himself is more, when you just get, like, when you see those people that were on bath salts type of thing, it's just that.
Oh man,
it's just
that's a brutal put down of Morgar.
Yeah, but it's just,
you're saying he's just Florida man.
Yeah, essentially it's just that it's completely
that is super rude to Morgar. How dare you compare him to the state of Florida?
There is no rhyme or reason for him, barring when he was trying to go directly for the for the oak, but other than that, he's just going to flail about and doing his thing. Whereas I think that Throgg would probably just, he's taken down some big characters, mind you. Well, the Sigvald thing was kind of out of the blue. I'd have to go with Throgg. I think that Throgg would probably win the fight. I think Throgg would probably be able to think on how to fight and just smash the dude. Eventually Morgar will come back, but I don't think that Morgar will take him as...
If you die in the duel, then you lose.
Yeah. So
being immortal doesn't count.
I'm gonna have to go with Throgg. All
right, so I'm actually gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go with Morgar, but here's my thoughts. My thoughts. So we actually have seen that Morgar can be a tough cookie in combat, in that he's difficult to put down, and that Orion has struggled to kill him. And most notably, Coadil the big tree man who's kind of like Durthu's evil brother, Codil tried to just crush him in his hands, and he couldn't do it. Morgur was like so tough, and he just kept regenerating, and he's like enough of a nuisance, like swinging a stick around, that Codil couldn't do it. He was only able to just hold him until Ariel showed up and just obliterated him. But the thing about Morgur is, I think what would actually doom Throgg is, I think Morgur would have a very high chance of screwing with Throgg's brain. And that Throgg, he is a smart, but he has a very tentative grasp on sanity. But, you know, that cliff of becoming troll stupid is right there. And I think the thing is that Throgg's regeneration, so as he's fighting Morgur and they're exchanging hits, Morgur is going to be, you know, cutting him, you know, stabbing him. Throgg doesn't have any armor. Throgg's purely relying on his regen, just like Morgur is. But where Morgur cannot have a bad mutation, Morgur is always regenerating. He's literally the avatar of mutation. And there's no such thing as a bad mutation for Morgur, because he just keeps going. For Throgg, there is such thing as a bad mutation. And I think because of him constantly regenerating while he's fighting Morgur is very likely to make him mutate. And just being around Morgur is also going to make him mutate like crazy. And even though Throgg can adjust to the vast majority of mutations, I think the thing is it's kind of like if you're gambling. If you're rolling just crazy, even if the odds are in your favor, there's still like a pretty good chance that you might roll snake eyes. And if Throgg gets that snake eyes where like maybe he goes back to being stupid, or he goes blind, or, you know, who knows what, like one of his arms falls off, he's doomed, because Morgur will just keep on coming. And whereas I think Throgg has to kill Morgur as quick as he can. That being said, I could definitely see the other way. And the only thing I'm not sure about is how Throgg's vomit would interact with Morgur. Because obviously if Throgg used the vomit early in the fight, and like, because Throgg can't vomit constantly, he can only do it every once in a while.
Depends where you eat.
So if Throgg vomited too early and tried to hit him at range, it would totally bounce. Like, Morgur would be fine. But if he got up really, really close and managed to grab Morgur and vomit on him, it might hurt him really bad. I'm not sure. It would be because it's magical in nature, it's kind of a toss-up how exactly it would interact with Morgur. It seems like it would work really well, but Morgur might also just regenerate through it. I think for me, the biggest thing is that the skull weave constantly screaming and literally just being this piercing shriek that Throgg would not be able to stop. Like, Throgg doesn't have any answer to that. And he's going to have that constantly distracting him and stop him from thinking clearly. Because I don't know if anyone here has been around like a large screeching sound, but like, you cannot think through that crap.
Kate Bush music.
Yeah, I think that man, you're just throwing shade at everybody today.
Sorry.
I think for me, I think Morgur has an easier road to success than Throgg does, in my opinion.
Fair. I think what will happen is the end of Scooby-Doo 2. And the troll will charge towards Morgur and will then eat the bastard. Because the one satisfying answer to a skull, if it's only the size of, say, I don't know, a lollipop or a sweetie, is you put it in your mouth and you crush it. And his stomach is magical, and as you've already stated, the troll can transform. But Morgur makes them transform more often. So therefore he's going to develop many, many mouths, and he's going to just eat the bastard. But there again, it's just an opinion.
Oh, kind of like a Grom the Punch type of situation.
Yeah, like, that actually would be a Grom the Punch scenario.
Again, obviously, you have a recurring war, because every time he then poops him out, well, they'll just go back at it again, won't they? It'd be a hilarious way for them both to die. Because they're not dying. They're just in this one patch of land, perpetually fighting. Who gets to eat and excrete the next?
Are you familiar with Grom the Punch, Voldemort?
A little bit. Obviously, I've played the game. My fantasy lore is bad.
So his scenario that we're referencing is the reason Grom got so big and so fat.
He's edibles. Yeah.
Yeah. He ate a piece of troll flesh, and it started regenerating too fast. So it was a rate of. it was a race of could he digest it faster than it regenerated, because if it regenerated too much, it'd pop him like a balloon.
Yep.
Grom was lucky and he won that fight. But actually, I didn't even think of that. If Throgg ate Morgar, would his stomach acid be able to outpace Morgar's regeneration? That's a pickle.
It's a
Well,
weird
if there was a
thing.
silly answer, you knew I'd find it. And also, I've got to admit, as people have mentioned in chat, yes, it's definitely very popular in chat.
I like it. I like the idea. I really, it's one of those lore questions which just kind of throws you off, doesn't it?
Oh, you guys
Yes.
know a lot more about it than I would. I've just heard your description. I didn't even know who Morgar was. I'm terribly sorry. I mean, my knowledge on fantasy is that bad at the moment.
Well, if you ever want to try out a new campaign in Total War, Morgar is one of the playable Beastmen lads.
He's really fun. He's really fun.
He is freakishly strong.
Yeah.
He is freakishly strong. But
my son plays Beastmen quite a bit, and I didn't get on with it because of the horde thing.
Oh no,
On
the
build,
DLC
they're not-
fixed that.
Did it? Oh,
Yeah.
Great.
oh yeah, they're so much better now. They're so much better now.
Like,
Yeah, 'cause now you can build Hearthstones.
they're playable.
They're awesome.
Yes. You did talk to me about that, but it was a long day. I'd done about 16 hours of making videos, and when your son's chatting at you, you're like, yeah. Wonderful. Yes, all good. Yes, we'll play it next week. Yeah.
Nathan, how did your chat vote?
I have Throgg on 55%.
Hey!
I've got for the Twitch chat for my side, we've got Morgar at 61%.
Ooh.
So a nice split.
Ooh.
Also, I just want to say I'm so bad with names, but the wonderful gentleman who has literally every week been drawing art of our Who Would Wins. Please, please don't make it awful. Like, we've talked about some potentially nasty scenarios here. Let's try and keep it.
Frog pooping
So I
out.
can retweet it.
Are you asking someone to
Try and keep the vor under control.
Oh, Sotek, really? You should never be controlled.
Oh,
We're
that
never
was
gonna get
good.
sponsors, Nathan.
That's all.
It's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great though. Oh, give me a sec. I'm gonna get some water. You guys carry on because I've been laughing too much.
Sure, dude. So Baltimore, what have you been? You say you've been working. You have a video coming out anytime in the near future?
I release 3 a week for my sins.
I don't know how you do that.
I don't know. Incredibly long hours, and hoping I don't fluff it. That's about it, really. I've got an incredibly kind and patient viewership. We'll put it that way.
Oh man, I love your stuff, dude. It's genuinely, it's so good. It's just a
like
delight to
a
watch.
very nice tasting Big Mac. It's not very complicated. It's not very satisfying, but it tastes good, I guess.
I don't know where you're getting off with this not satisfying nonsense. It is the most satisfying.
Again, though, I only do starter stuff. I'm not like you guys who go drilling right in down. So maybe 1 year, but I'm just not up to it. And again, I read slowly, so getting through the entire Horus Heresy has been a bit of a marathon, and I'm still not even close. But in my defense, I would say that sometimes I take some nuances out of one book and know more from one book than some other people do from 3. It's not me being intelligent or anything. It's just I actually really read them. So it's one of those things. Yeah, on a regular occasion, I'll stop reading and think, ooh, what does that actually mean? And then, really go into it. So that's why the reading's not that slow, but the enjoyment of a book takes bloody ages. Sorry about that. That was a bit of waffle. I'm going to shut up for a while.
Dude, you're
No,
fine.
it's
You don't need
fine,
to apologize.
Help me
It's a
out.
talking show. That's what we do here.
Yeah, I'm not used to them. I'm so sorry.
There's no reason to apologize. Stop apologizing.
Sorry.
And for anyone listening to this, whether you're in one of the chats or you're catching this later on the podcast stuff, Baltimore is so full of crap and he's lying. His stuff is amazing. And if you're not watching him, you're doing yourself a massive disservice.
If you especially
let's move on.
How
Yeah,
he formats his
the-
videos.
Yeah, really.
Especially if you're trying to get into 40k, which, especially for a new person getting into 40k now, it can be a bit of a slog. So if you want to see your specific topics and so on, Baldy lays them out really well. It's easy for people. Like, I've only started recently getting back into 40k, and trust me, it helps. If you're trying to get into the lore.
Yeah, or if you want good examples of how to do good storytelling.
Yeah.
Absolute masterclass.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely.
Well, those are roughly put together. They're not actually good. Stop lying to people. They just sound good. There's a difference. I have to read this swill.
All right, so next up on our topic, speaking of 40k, that's where we're heading next.
Yeah.
So, the thing we're actually going to talk about first is a really bizarre topic, to be frank, that a lot of people either don't know about, or if they do know about it, they pretend they don't. Which is that during the end times, there was a very famous handful of incidents that happened starting from the third book going to the end, which was that for whatever reason, the authors of the end times, I guess because it was the end of the world and who cares, right, decided to put in a lot of cameos from various projects. And the ones that garnered the most attention and have kind of lived on in infamy were that the 40k universe actually made a couple of cameo appearances during the end times of Warhammer Fantasy.
Thankful, wasn't
Yeah.
In Thankful and also in Kane.
it? Yes. Yes.
So we're going to talk about those today and kind of talk about our thoughts on those little story blips. So the first is one that has actually been talked about a fair bit in more recent years, because there have been claims that it has been retconned. But I was actually looking into this fairly recently, and I have not found any hard evidence of this retcon, which is that in Kane, there is a kind of a side quest that happens during the book, where a group of elf characters led by Erloth, who is a wood elf special character, go into Nurgle's garden in the realm of chaos, and they bust free the goddess Shalia, who was his Pox Fulcrum, so the thing he tested his plagues on, and replaced her with a fake, essentially. But during this quest, they ran into a very peculiar individual who was wearing large silver armor, fighting demons. He was kind of crazy, and he was completely immortal. He could not be killed.
Yeah.
And this matches very, very well with a particular character from the ever infamous Grey Knights, the extremely infamous character Kaldor Drago, I think, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
You are correct, yes.
Mary Sue.
One of the most...
Mary Sue's get together, and with all of their combined ability in writing, write Kaldor Drago.
To say he's a polarizing character might be a bit of an understatement, but he appeared, and as it states, he was literally invincible. There is a scene where the elves are leaving where Kaldor Drago has essentially been skewered like a shish kebab on some kind of large demon sword, and the elves are saying, "Oh, we have to help them," and their guide, who's a character from a different fantasy story, says, "Nah, he's fine. That stuff happens to him all the time. He's fine. It's fine." And so this moment was crazy for fantasy fans, especially, but I imagine also for 40k fans, because just what? And in Age of Sigmar, there were a lot of rumors that, oh no, it wasn't Kaldor Drago, it was actually a Stormcast Eternal.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard as well, because I checked it knowing that this was coming up, and I saw the Stormcasting, and I was like, oh, that's bloody new, isn't it? When did that come?
But I have not found any evidence of that being an actual retcon, and it also doesn't make sense, because the thing is, Stormcast Eternals are very explicitly not immortal. If you stab a Stormcast, he'll die. He just turns into lightning and flies away. So, as a lightning bolt. So, it has to be Kaldor Drago, because he's the only character I know of who wears big silver armor, and you could stab him many, many times in literally the center of hell, and he won't die. So,
Yeah,
But-
or it's a character they haven't developed yet, because a lot of good writers or bad writers, whichever way you want to call it, righty types, chuck in things which they don't necessarily have any explanation for, so they can call it foreshadowing for when they do develop it. So it could just be a pure banana skin thrown into the face of every, onto the floor in front of every reader, designed to just get people to talk. Khaldor Drago, he fires blue flame, okay, possibly. Sword through the stomach, yeah, he comes back from that all of the time, easily. But is it Khaldor? You would have thought that silver armor, etc., is one thing, but you would have thought that they would have mentioned some of the other things, like how incredibly wide he'd be, how the armor should make some kind of noise. So they would say it was almost like TikTok kind of, I don't know, Duardin armor or something else like that. There should be some kind of noise coming from the actual Space Marine power armor, and they haven't really mentioned that, so I don't know. But again, that's just my opinion. I can see you're wincing there, Nathan. Go on, hit me.
There are ways to think that, yeah, but keep in mind, the End Times was incredibly rushed post second book, because first book started off okay.
That's a century. Yeah, go on, sorry.
Because like they went like they fucking forgot about Scarsnake. It's just let's not end one of the storylines for one of the most important characters in the history of the franchise. Second off, it could have been a callback to, I believe, was it Rogue Trader had an edition where you could play Warhammer Fantasy Minis versus Warhammer 40k Minis as a whole mix of timelines.
There was a lot of weirdness going on in Rogue Trader, and it was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
But you'd also have some actual options, I believe, I can't remember which edition it was in Fantasy, where you could actually pick up things like a bolt pistol. So that's second, third, fourth edition. I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah.
But that's the rumor I was looking at the other day.
Yeah, well, and there were casual connections between Fantasy and 40k all the way until 7th edition. In 6th edition, I mean, at the end of 6th edition for the Albion Crisis, the rewards players got for the Albion Crisis were just 40k weapons.
Yeah.
Like, it was literally like a power fist, like a bolter, and like it was very tongue in cheek. In 7th edition, they tried really hard to scrub away and get rid of a lot of those.
Yeah, they separated it all out. But I mean, originally, when they were actually in the shops, you wouldn't have orcs, you'd have space orcs. They weren't dwarves or squats, they were space dwarves. They were space elves, space marines. Everything was smigging space at the start. And you get 36, so like dwarves, etc., or Imperial Guard in one big box. So, I mean, all of it definitely came from Fantasy. And again, I wasn't quite sure when they actually broke away entirely. But even in the late 90s, they were saying, yeah, there's not that much of a connection. And that made no sense. But until you looked at, say, when they squatted the squats, they were just trying to get an individual IP strength and an individual shape and image, and not, it's fantasy and space for Warhammer 40k. So they had to get rid of, say, Space Dwarves as much, and other things as well, as much as they could. But Eldar, the aesthetic was too strong, so as far as I could see, they couldn't.
And that's for anyone listening that's maybe not familiar with the history between Fantasy and 40k. There is a really interesting story that we'll have to talk about one day, which is very big on that. 40k originally was just fantasy, but 40,000 years in the future, but it was fantasy. So you had all your favorite races, and a lot of them changed significantly over the years, and they got separated much more heavily. But the Tyranids were originally lizardmen, and you can actually still see a lot of those really fun connections in how the armies play / art design. But going back to the Khaldor Drago thing, I think that also an important thing is to keep in mind who was writing that book, which, if memory serves, I think Kane was either written by Matt Ward or Josh Reynolds.
Kane did Demon Prince of Undivided Ward did some of the Anarian stuff. He did the Tyrion storyline.
Which Caldor Drago is kind of Matt Ward's baby.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he was, but oh, come on, let's leave Wardy alone. He's taken a kicking for a decade.
no, I'm not saying that to throw shade at him. I'm saying that kind of like it would make sense for it to be Caldor Drago. Like it's another point.
No, I do apologise. I thought we were just going to go into a massive rant, because usually when anybody's had any coffee or anything else, that name comes up and it's half an hour of spittle across the face, you know.
That horse has been beaten so far into the ground. No thanks.
Just leave him alone.
No, keep in mind that he's done some good stuff. Like he wrote didn't he do the storyline for Vermintide 2?
Maybe, but I mean, some of his 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy writing was really good. Like the lore, like I really enjoyed how he expanded like the Elven Pantheon and a couple other things.
Yeah. Like he's not all bad. It's just he marries through the Ultramarines.
Yeah, but we're not here to talk about him.
No, we're not.
Yeah, if you want to learn about him, there's plenty of places you can go to do that. Yes, someone's saying yes. Ward was a lot the heavy hand behind Vermintide 2, which is spectacular.
Yeah.
But so we have Caldor Drago, or it's very likely Caldor Drago, which was interesting.
It's unlikely to be a reference to him, but due to the situation and the time, etc., it just wasn't handled as well as it could be.
Yeah, and it wasn't offensive. Like it was literally it was an unnamed random character who showed up. He didn't do anything super important for the plot. All he did was he joined up with them. And when they tried to get into Nurgle's mansion, they were like, "Oh, we need a distraction to get past the guards." And he's like, "I've got this!" And he like ran in and started attacking all the demons.
Yeah.
And then as they're leaving, they see him skewered, and that's it. Like that's all he does. But so it's almost literally just a cameo appearance. And then the other moment we see where 40K is very deliberately mentioned is in Thanquol, where the Skaven invade the city of Slonhapek, and in the city of Slonhapek, which is the city of Mists in Lustria, they manage to take it while the Slon are all knocked out. And as they're going through all of its artifacts and messing with all these things, they find what the Skaven describe as a much more advanced version of a far squeaker, which a far squeaker for the Skaven is basically like a long distance radio. And by long distance, I mean like continents long distance, not like miles. But
it's 2 cans and a very long string.
So they find this artifact, which is actually like a known artifact in the Lizardman lore, because there's a skink priest that uses it in one of the old Lizardman army books, and he thinks he hears something, and the Slon debate it for a while before deciding that, nah, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
But the Skaven start messing with it. And they like are really messing with it, because you know how Skaven are. And apparently they end up making contact with another race across the stars. And the race that they end up talking to, they don't understand what they're saying, but the book goes out of its way to establish that they're very, very elven in their dialect and language. So it's something extremely close to the elves of Warhammer Fantasy, which is a very, very, very heavy reference, of course, to the Eldar.
Yeah.
And the Skaven subsequently freak out, literally throw the device on the ground and shoot it with a bunch of guns.
Who would blame them?
There was another...
It's speaking Elvish.
There was another reference round about one of the Nagash plot lines. This is more of a direct reference, and I remember I asked someone... It was one of the writers during one of the Reddit Ask Me Anythings, but it was Nagash... When he goes into that monologue about wanting to devour the Chaos Gods and become a god in his own right, he wanted to... He makes direct reference to the universe of 40,000, saying that the Chaos Gods work in different universes and so on. So it was kind of like a nod saying that the same Chaos Gods there are the same Chaos Gods here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a notable. It's actually not just in Nagash. It's brought up a couple times throughout the storyline, particularly in Nagash and in Archaon. It's talked about a lot in the last book. Of that, the Dark Gods are not. One of the things the End Times introduced, which gets super duper messy from a lore standpoint, is the concept that the Dark Gods are not limited to just the fantasy planet, which they are in the older lore. Of like, if you're looking at like 6th edition forward, it's like you just have the Warhammer fantasy planet essentially in a nutshell. But the Dark Gods are instead on many planets across many galaxies, and the idea is brought up that they're even across multiple realities, which is very likely. Of a popular fan theory, which for my taste it gets too messy, but it does make sense, is the idea that because the Realm of Chaos is literally a different dimension, if the Dark Gods have broken through multiple dimensions, then in every dimension they would be perceived extremely differently. They would, show up in different forms, or they would have different histories, different personalities, different stuff, because they would be a reflection of that universe as opposed to the universe you're in. Which is it's not an impossible theory. I think it gets very messy very quickly. But the End Times leaned very heavily on that for some of the stuff it was looking at.
It's an odd thing, but I think it's just again, it's the hints but no direction. Then again, we are talking about the End Times, so
yeah. Well, and the thing is, the End Times, the best way I can describe its creation is essentially someone wrote like a super vague, like drew a line on a board and was like, okay, this has to happen here, this has to happen here, and just did that down the line and said, just get to that point, and just you have 5 months, get it done.
Yeah.
Like, because for how large those books are, they were printed horrifyingly fast.
Yeah. I mean, I think my the Glockin novella has spelling mistakes.
Well, like don't even get me started on. Don't even get me started on the novellas.
Which is a shame.
No, but even in the codices, there are horrific grammatical and syntax errors. That's just human error. It's one of those things. And it's Games Workshop. They're like a drunk uncle. Sometimes they do things you go, yeah. And sometimes they do things where you go, oh, So yeah.
It's a shame sometimes though, because it was this weird weird thing that just threw me off. I had to keep reading it again. It's a good book though. Like the Glockin storyline is very, like, for end time standard, I wouldn't even call that an end time story because it was actually really fucking well written. But
the most bizarre thing about it is that here's the thing about the novellas that's the problem with them, is that if you read the novella and then you read like the big book that it's supposed to go with, they're completely different stories.
Yeah.
Like, they cover the same events, but they're completely different stories. Like the characters act completely different. They have different mannerisms. Like, it's like you could tell that 2 different authors were given the same thing, and they did not have any time. Like, they were just writing as fast as they could.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, these days we've got Skype and all the rest of it to talk to each other. Again, I don't never blame the writer. I blame the editors for not saying, yeah, dude, sorry, seriously, he doesn't have 3 eyes. Little things like that, Yeah,
the writers did a great job. It's people upstairs telling them, this is your deadline, get it done, and like that's just not humanly possible.
No.
it was
like the writers literally had
right.
As far as I'm concerned, I genuinely believe that Games Workshop for the End Times just had writers tied down to chairs with cattle prods next to them to just write faster.
Yeah, I think we've all seen that video.
He knows the one I'm ripping.
Yeah.
I do.
It's classic. It's a classic. But so going from there, another thing we wanted to kind of talk about with 40K, and I think this will be really fun to have Baltimore's input on, is that a really popular thing to discuss, I think, for any fan of fantasy or 40K or anyone familiar with the settings, is discussing, kind of taking inspiration from the End Times, what would happen, or what would be some of the interesting notes if the fantasy universe was actually in the 40K universe and they had the ability to interact with each other.
Yeah, it would be bad.
Which, I mean, I think for me, the 2 things that stand out the most that would be like crazy earth-shaking would be Skaven Skaven let loose in the 40k universe would get real bad real quick. That'd be bad for everybody.
It writes itself.
I see what you mean, but realistically, the orcs in Warhammer Fantasy, unless I'm really wrong, are not the orcs in Warhammer 40k. And the 40k orcs were outmaneuver, outbreed, and out multiply even the Skaven because of their spore-like nature. So, have they already got them? Yes, they're called the orcs.
I think the important thing to note about the Skaven that gets wonky is that we're dealing with a race that managed to take Renaissance era technology and created doomsday engines that could wreck planets, and they created an orbital ray that dragged the moon closer to the Earth with Renaissance tech.
Yeah.
If you let them loose
that
in
is
40K,
fair. That is fair, but Warhammer 40 orcs, if you get more than 10 of them in an area, they kill each other, the numbers go up until finally they're creating attack moons. So I'll raise your ring with attack moons teleporting across space and appearing above planet Earth.
So, in comparison, when it comes to the Skaven breeding, the population of, say, for example, just the Skaven in the Warhammer Fantasy world would be comparable to possibly Hive World Necromunda.
No, absolutely. I totally get that. And I'm not saying that the Skaven aren't great. They are. But the orcs in 40k are far more prolific. They're the most numerous race in the galaxy. And you can't wipe them out. When you when you wipe out all the Skaven, they're dead. You kill every orc in the existence, they come back in less than a year.
Yeah, I'm not as too worried about like who would win in a fight type scenario. More of like if you took the fantasy races and you were like, okay, you exist in 40k now, and they were able to like spread, what would the consequences of that? Like, how would they interact with the universe?
Yeah.
Would it be interesting? Because like some races I don't think would be super interesting, like, you know, Empire, Dwarves, High Elves, Dark Elves, whatever. But like the Skaven would be super interesting. I think they would adjust very quickly and get very scary. I think another race that would actually be terrifying for 40k would be the Vampire Counts. Like a race that can take anything that's dead and resurrect it is a pretty crazy player to add into the game.
Yeah. I mean, we used to have vampires in Rogue Trader.
Yes.
Much more of a RPG. And you used to have them. I can't remember the stats off the top of my head. It has been 30 plus years. But they weren't easy to destroy. Things like that, people will say, yeah, 40k will not have a good time. But then after that, anyone who knows a little bit more about 40k says, well, they're a dog's dinner compared to Dominators and they're later called the Psych Newin. But basically, how to put this? The controllers, again, because it's late on a Sunday, I'm sorry, but there is a race which pretty much wiped out the old ones at the beginning of time.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I've heard about them.
Yeah, you've heard of them, and they're just as ludicrously dangerous. I think as well the Nephilim were similar, but I'll have to check on that. But they've dealt with things like vampire situations on a regular basis. They're just not tough enough because everything is trumped by a bolter. Boom!
Someone in chat suggests that they were called enslavers.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Absolutely, enslavers. Really knocked the crap out of the old ones, so they lost the war in heaven.
So here's a question for both of you guys, especially since y'all are much more into 40k stuff. Is that if you could pick one of the fantasy races to just pick up, and they would like not like literally just as they are, but 40k-ify them so they would match the rest of the setting. You only get one. Who is the race that you would pick up and drop in as a player into the 40k universe?
Well, that's a great question. You go first, Nathan. You know about this.
With the same mentality as they would have in fantasy, just brought into 40k, yeah?
Yeah, so like they have their same theming, but update them to 40k's scale and like, capabilities.
Skaven, no question. Imagine fucking Clan Molder with loads and loads of different warpstone technology, and then trying to bioengineer Tyranids. Like,
I'm sure that would go well.
Imagine the complete and absolute fuckery that would just bring in.
You have Throgg the Unclean explaining to the Council of 13 why the fusing orc into Tyranid with Warpstone worked, technically, but we also have a problem.
Because it's pure raw chaos. I mean, we've got a bit of lore of Tyranids attacking demon worlds, don't we, Baldy?
They've had a ruck before, if memory serves, but they basically called it a no. Neither of them can win because the Tyranids haven't got anything to eat, and Chaos has nothing to eat either because they don't have a soul. So they can't say, So basically, they can destroy each other, but they don't have any horse in the race.
Okay, but how would that work with Warpstone then, considering it's solidified and edible? Edible.
That could be a real problem for Niddy. We don't really know how the hive mind works. We don't know if it's individual hive minds or one overall hive mind.
Oh, yeah.
And that could completely screw them up. You could be looking at a Picard situation, whereas in Star Trek they had a trap that they were going to put into the Borg, which would have completely broken them down. I'm not sure if that kind of thing, it wouldn't actually be possible. And yeah, it would be absolutely wonderful to hear that kind of nuance happening. But I mean, there have been other events, whereas Chaos has absolutely annihilated a large hive fleet, which was done over Baal, when basically Khorne's commander said, "Nah, Nids are not taking out the Blood Angels. They're my dinner."
Oh yeah,
annihilated an entire moon full of Nids and put them in lovely cornate patterns. Wonderful stuff.
Okay, real quick, we gotta talk about Kabanda. I forgot. We have to talk about Kabanda.
Absolute meme.
So in the end times, probably the most infamous thing that happened, because it actually changed, it was actually very plot important, is that Archaon summons Kabanda in the last book of the end times for out of nowhere, like a character who has never existed in fantasy, has nothing to do with fantasy. He's like, he's like the big hate boner guy for the Blood Angels. He just pops out and ends up like, not only does he trash Athel Loren, he kills one of the Incarnates. He kills Caradryan in a duel, and he's basically just unstoppable until Sigmar gets his stupid hammer back, and then Sigmar just one-shots him because Sigmar. But,
that's fair.
Oh my god, yeah, someone in the chat's right. I didn't forget Kabanda. I repressed Kabanda. It's such a weird...
We've got so many of the major demons wandering around now. Obviously, we have, the first ever chosen, who just goes on a potty break wherever he likes in the universe, doesn't he? I feel like crapping in the Age of Sigmar. There we go. Oh, I'll go for a dump on the Warhammer 40 universe. There we go. So, I mean, there's quite a few of them bombing around now, which are almost intersectional, aren't they, really?
Yeah, because you guys now have
he's talking about Be'lakor.
Yeah.
Kabanda was just super weird because, like, we have the big bad fantasy demon, which is Skarbrand for us. Like, in fantasy, Skarbrand's the big bad.
No, but he's come across now. You can even play him in Warhammer 40k. They haven't made too much of a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've got to admit, I nearly lost my temper at the manager in the Games Workshop. So I went in to buy it, and I reserved it, and he sold it. It's the closest I've been.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's the closest I've been to punching a manager in about 20 years. Obviously, I would not have, but yeah, it's annoying.
That's super rude.
I was not the happy man. But I walked out with a Mutilath, so, can't argue, really.
Oh, I love those Vortex beasts.
I love them, lovely. They're so fun.
How do I feel about Be'lakor in 40k and fantasy? I mean, I love Be'lakor as a fantasy fan. I don't know why he's in 40k. He barely makes any sense in 40k, in my opinion. But because he's a fantasy character. Like, he's in 40k, but it's not really where he... Like, that's not his scene, so to speak.
I know, but we've got the unifying factor now. We don't have just one world, we have three. And all of the unifying factors have been, in my mind, the Chaos Guards, etc., etc. I mean, for me, as I stated in recent lore videos, I personally believe, because we don't see the genesis of them in fantasy, and obviously not in Age of Sigmar, because they've already run the war. The only place you do actually see their genesis is actually in the war, the Grimdark. So what I personally believe is that, I don't know, read a comic called Zenith. It's 2000 AD thing, give that a good go. But the amazing thing happens that the good guys go all the way through the story, and at the very end it turns out they are the bad guys. They become the Loy Gore, because as soon as they ascend they go outside of time. So realistically, as soon as they are created in the warp, they exist at all points within the warp and all times.
I like that, yeah.
So therefore, it doesn't matter when you're burst in the warp, you always exist. It's like all of the older demons and other things which have been destroyed do not exist now. So everything in the warp almost has a lack of object permanency. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
but there's going on there. So I was on the verge of writing last week and having loads of characters from both setting sitting around corner as his generals and talking, because at the end of the day, if you're Lord of the North, you're a Stark, and obviously our lad here is from Dawn down the bottom. You go to King's Landing, the throne of Khorne, you talk it all over, and then you are sent back to your own dimensions to go and kick ass in the way you should. But there's no real reason, effectively, you couldn't hop from one area to another, because the warp connects all, and that has been irrefutably proven. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier, about the whole thing of like, yes, I'm just gonna say yes. Otherwise we'll be here forever. So Baltimore, did you have a pick for if you could tick any of the fantasy races?
Lizard men. I want Slan back, and I've been looking at the Lizard men. I bought half the range at one point to change back into Slan, give them all bolters or las guns, etc., and have a bit of a laugh. But then after that, unfortunately, my bank manager looked at me and said, "No, you are bad." So I had to sell it all.
We're cutting you off.
It wasn't a good moment, no. Explaining how much I put them on eBay, etc., to Mrs. B was not helpful either. I would have the Lizard Men, because also you've got the Slan connection. It will be absolutely fantastic, and some of those models are just gagging to have Eldar put on the top as Exodites. Why they keep dick teasing us with Exodites, I don't know. The last straw for me with all of it was when I saw a little video and it said the Exodite, and I thought, finally they're going to do an animation about Exodite. No, it's about a Tau. Then why did you call it that, you bastards? So one of those things.
When Eldar finally get new miniatures, we're going to have to keep up with, just make sure that you don't die out of excitement.
Well, our Fiat 212's got quite a lovely list up stating what could be coming. Again, I can't believe in anything at the moment because it's just been too long. Yeah. But Eldar desperately need those new models. And again, the thing that's annoying for me, though, is get a Dread Saurian, take off all of the other stuff, put an elf on the top, give him a huge bright lance or 3. What is the question here? What is the situation? We're talking zero need to convert or do heavy manipulation here. They're all working from CAD. They could do that in a fucking week and get it out within a year. And they could, and they just won't do it because it's Space Marines, Space Marines, Space Marines. Okay, right, I'm turning into a whiny bitch. I'm sorry about that. It's been an hour and a half since I've had a fag. Cigarette is what it means in England. Okay, someone else talk for a while I shut up.
Well, we're actually coming into the... this is a good segue into the next topic, which was the whole 40k discussion and how things are going. Because obviously... there is a lot of Space Marine love, and that is absolutely certain. But it's only Loyalist, which is fucking annoying, because I play Tau, I play Chaos Space Marines. I like Loyalists too, don't get me wrong, but it is... Oh, and my cats are fighting. But it is ridiculous as to how there is just a pure love for Loyalists, and there's rumors of more Loyalist stuff coming, but yet there's some really cool rumors coming in the woodwork for Chaos, for example. We've all heard those rumors recently, I'm assuming we have, about the Traitor Guardsman. I mean, that sounds very, very interesting. Then we're obviously... we've obviously heard rumors about new Eldar minis. We've seen new Tau stuff already. Well, it's just an upgrade pack, but an upgrade pack is better than nothing. It's very... Obviously, we have to take into account, like, with what's happening with Age of Sigmar at the moment, COVID has screwed the edition over.
Without doubt. But I mean, I'd like everyone to step back for a second. Okay. You're walking around in your hometown and it's got 5 McDonald's in it, okay? And you think everything's bloody McDonald's now. And you kind of miss the fact that 3 really good restaurants have opened up in your area because you see all the McDonald's. And that's how it is with Warhammer 40k. Everyone concentrates on the amount of Space Marines that have been coming out. That's their bread and butter. That's never, ever, ever going to change, okay? That's never going to change. That is their bedrock. That is their profit margin. That is it. Everything else is fluff and everything else is cakes and biscuits, yeah? It's the afters. But realistically, actually, if you look over the last 5 years, because everyone's looking at the Space Marines and going, oh, I don't have 50 new models in my range, it's poop. Now, everything I'm saying does not count for Eldar, okay? We know that. But most of the others, in the last 5 years, have had a storming time.
Yeah. I mean...
Storming. They just don't have anything compared to the numbers of the Space Marines. Now, if you actually look at Necrons, I mean, they didn't do a 100% refix of everything.
Yeah.
But most of the models they've made in the last 6 or 7 years have been really good.
Yeah.
And then what they've done is they've taken a 14, 15 extra models, has really rounded out the entire range. And they've done that with a load of things. I mean, Dark Eldar are nothing to be sniffed at. They're still phenomenal models. Tau had, all right, fair enough, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. You can say, oh, it's a very, very long time that they've had anything. And that's true. But again, they're not bad unto themselves in the first place. They're not that old, some of the models. So if you take away, okay, there's always a rich kid in class who can go to Barbados every year, then goes to Switzerland 3 times a year, etc. But if you take him out of the classroom, most of the armies have actually had quite a bit come through over the last 4 or 5 years, 6, and I think a lot of them are in a really good position.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, there's that one kid in the classroom who always gets everything, and it can create a lot of jealousy. But if you look at compared to their actual previous releases, and the time span that they were turning things around in, everyone would be up in arms saying, guys, you're knocking out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, even just with 9th, we've seen a massive rework to the Necrons, which the models look great. The Orcs have just recently had a lot of really cool stuff too, which...
I know, but even then, a couple of years ago, we also had all of the the Snans wagons and all of the rest of it. They oversold it though. They said that it's going to be October, it's going to be wall-to-wall Orcs, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
If they hadn't hyped up so much and just said, dudes, we have some amazing Orcs coming out, then it would have been okay.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, Imperial Guard and others could really use with a couple more models, but we know they're coming. Yeah, Krieg is here, and then after they're going to back it up, I would imagine they'd have to be suicidal, well, daft not to. So are things perfect? No. They're not. Yeah. But there again, Stormcast Eternals had about 3 years when they were getting everything Age of Sigmar, didn't they? Does that make sense?
What I've noticed, and possibly Sotek's Sotek is definitely the better judge here for this. Just give me 1 second. I'm getting another one of those weird sex bots popping up. I'm freaking... I hate these.
Bro, I tell you, you gotta clear your browser history before streams.
It's every chat. It's every chat. So
that's what you get for being a Slaanesh fan. That's what you get. You did it to yourself.
So what?
He's on Major Kills. Yeah. Sorry, I won't say that. Go on.
What I understand on the difference here is a lot of love goes to Space Marines, and it's Space Marines are center stage. Now, what I've understood so far from Age of Sigmar is they'll center stage them at the beginning of an edition, and then they'll give a lot of love to different races and factions. Is that correct?
So first edition, no, but first edition also sold very poorly and was like not good. It had a lot of problems, and they released Stormcast Eternals like 3 times during first edition, and a lot of people didn't like that. Second edition, Stormcast got a release at the beginning. That was it. They didn't get anything else. That was it. It was over. You got Stormcast, and like, you know, they got some like war bands for like Underworlds, but like, you know, it's very minor. It's a side game.
Yeah.
And that turned out spectacular.
Yeah.
Now going into third edition, Stormcast got another big release at the start of third edition, and I'm hoping they do what they did second. Second edition almost entirely was just gold. Like, it was just a great edition. It was super fun. Like, there were tons of factions, tons of armies. Some things weren't as good as we would have liked, but a lot of the factions had amazing releases. And yeah, like Stormcast, do it once and you're done. Like, the thing is that, like, even if you are a Stormcast player, here's the thing that I always don't get about Space Marine players personally, is that if you're a Space Marine player or a Stormcast player, you should want only one big release. Because if you get one big release every edition, you know, the toys you're going to get are going to be awesome because you're only getting one, so they're going to go all out on it. And then once you've got everything and they start focusing on all these other races, that means when you go to play your damn game, you have something besides Space Marines to fight. Like, you have other armies that are also as good as your army and look as good as your army, but they're different. So the tables are exciting and fun.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how Space Marine players get all, but like their monopoly seems like it'd be so boring.
I'll tell you why. It's very, very simple. You probably don't get the same codex creep that you do in Age of Sigmar that you do in Warhammer 40k. So what we've seen over the last 3 editions, 3 editions, is they do Space Marines early, very, very early, so they can then sell you another codex later on in the edition, near its end. They get to sell you 2 codices. And if you play any of the sub-factions, obviously like Blood Angels, etc., that's another book you got to buy. So you're going minimum of 3 books by the end of an edition. That's without the campaign books, etc., that you get in Warhammer 40k. It is an easy way to get you to go back to the trough again and again and again.
And sometimes they'll sell you a second book for a faction, and it will be complete and utter garbage. Chaos Space Marines 1 and 2. 2 books. Same art, by the way. Same art.
I'm curious. Do y'all think so? For 9th edition for 40k, I could be totally wrong, but it almost looks like they're doing more of, okay, here's your giant Space Marine book, but instead of saying, okay, we're gonna do another Space Marine book, now they're being like, it's not Space Marines, it's Black Templars. It's not Space Marines.
No. The main book for Space Marines allows you to play basic rules. Yeah. And then after that, if you want to play Black Templars or, Blood Angels or any of the others, you then get the supplement.
Yeah.
So I personally believe that if they really were going as extreme as they could, they wouldn't just release a Space Marines Codex at the beginning of a run, and say the supplementals, they would do it as well. If they could possibly get away with it, they would also do it at the end of the edition too.
The problem is, this, like he said, there's a lot of love for the Space Marines because it will sell. Chaos Space Marines are very popular, and Chaos Space Marines literally only need one errata. One errata. Give them 2 fucking wounds. That's it. 2 fucking wounds.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And it's not happening. It's bad. It's really bad.
Because
I will say, Age of Sigmar so far is like, it's going great. To be honest, things are gravy these days.
Yeah.
I hope the old world is very similar. a part of me is a little worried that like the Empire looks like it's going to be 3 factions instead of just 1 faction. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not envy, and it's sad too, because like it sucks for everybody in 40k, because either you're not a Space Marine player and you're super duper frustrated at how you never get any support or your stuff isn't as good, or you are a Space Marine player and you are being nickeled and dimed out the ass for like everything.
True. But you don't have to buy everything all of the time. Another thing is that people forget at every single junction, because at the beginning, end of 8th, beginning of 9th, they said, look, we brought in a tournament organizer to help us. And literally my jaw hit the ground. I went, oh, good God. I'm not against tournaments. Don't get me wrong. But when you open up the new codices, before you'd have the fluff, then the overall rules for the army, then the individual rules for the characters, and then you'd have like the artifacts and stuff at the back. Now, half of the book is rules.
Yeah.
And you got to pick your faction, then you got to pick your sub faction, then you got to pick your artifacts, your warlord traits, and all the rest of these things. But you've got about 4 more stages, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, we all know what happens. Games Workshop makes a very powerful codex for 1 month. They already know how they're going to nerf it, but they just basically dog whistle the tournament scene. Tournament scene, go out, buy an army, then 1 month later, they buy the next army. It's just really unfortunate that they don't see it as a game. They don't see it as an addition. They don't see it as a hobby. They see it purely as a way to extract money as fast as possible. And sure, they should definitely get paid. They should definitely get money, but they know what they're doing. The problem I have now is that the entire book is run like, okay, you need to be a tournament player to really drill down into all of this instead of a casual. Because a casual, you can read 1/2 of the rules and then play, they say, but they're spread out all over the place. So it's actually getting very messy. And I'm thinking to myself, 8th edition was a streamlining of the rules so you got younger players in. And then you do this. What is your market? What is your demographic? And what are you doing? Because at the moment, I'm getting whiplash from the amount of changes, not in rules, but in direction from Games Workshop's Warhammer 40k games.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. Like, say, for example, every codex that you buy now has a section dedicated to Warhammer Crusade. And I like Crusade. I've actually played a few games. It's thematic. It takes you back to a more 5th edition feel for Warhammer Fantasy in a sense. But, like, it's not a tournament game. So it brings you... They should have just had Crusade as one side book rather than flop it in there, because a lot of things, like you say, it's missing a lot of fluff, and this is why I love these books, because there's fluff, and it gets you to know your army, because you want to be invested in it. And yes, the novels do a lot of that too, but the problem is a novel will give you a bit of information and it won't give you everything. Whereas this, it will give you footnotes on everything. So say, for example, if this was a Space Marine book, this would say, from the Primarch Project, Robuta Gilliman, a few sub-factions, second foundings, third foundings, all that. And a little bit of fluff to get you to know this is an Ultramarines book. Say, for example, it needs more fluff. And this is why I like the battle tomes for Age of Sigmar, because they've kept that purity of what Warhammer is.
They're very fluffy. They're super fluffy.
This is the problem, lads, because exactly as Nathan's saying, Warhammer 40k, because of the amount of rules, they have had to drop half of the fluff.
Yeah, and it's a shame.
You cannot look up a unit and get half a page on it. You get a sidebar, 30 words. Yeah. And it's fine for us. And again, I was thinking when I actually read the first codex like that, I hope they're not all like this. And then I thought, are you literally just going to put my name and other people's beginners channels to explain all of the units and what they do then? Their history. Because you've not done it. And there's no. I was expecting some kind of book, as in the units of Warhammer 40k or the Space Marines or whatever else, and they've not done that either. So basically, they said this is a game, forget the fluff. Because from my perspective, at the present moment, they seem to be very, very anti the fluff. They write the books, but they're Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
And they're eradicating it because when they don't do their homework, they do mess up. Not the writer, the editor, okay? The guy who's supposed to know what's going in these books. They don't do it right. And they get so much stick. I think they've just turned around and said, sod it. If they want to know, they can go online on YouTube. And I'm like, what is your problem, guys? There's 9-year-olds, there's a 13-year-old sitting in a room looking at a picture going, that's cool. But there's not something that then goes with it that makes them go, oh my God, that's cool. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
so are they making it for tournament players or are they making it for new players? Because this edition doesn't do either well. It's just my opinion, though.
Well, no, and I think that's a fair criticism. I'm actually really sad to hear that about the 40k books.
Yeah.
Because I've been reading the new 3rd edition AOS books, and like I actually really like their design in that literally the front half of the book is just pure lore. Mm-hmm. It's just lore, and it literally is like, okay, here's all the lore about how this faction like looks, operates, and thinks. Here is now a detailed story look back at their timeline. All right, here is now lore about every single special character and every single unit gets at least a page of lore. No matter how many war scrolls there are, there's like 90 war scrolls or 90 like things you can take in the Stormcast book. Mm-hmm. That's why the book is 200 pages because there's over 100 pages of. There's just 100 pages of lore.
I know, but then imagine the next book you buy will be 60 pages of lore and the rest of it is all just rules. How would you feel?
Well, yeah, no, that would suck. And like,
I mean, they've even taken out the chronologies from the codices in Warhammer 40k.
Yeah.
The only reason I hate doing them, I find them really tedious because I've read them a million times. But I'm actually recording them and putting it out there at the moment because they're not available to new players. They are not there.
It's something which is becoming an issue, and it does worry me for future editions of maybe Age of Sigmar or even the Old World, because when it comes to the Old World thing, there's going to be a lot of new players, and they need to know these things. And yeah, of course, there's people like myself and Sotek, but like some of them don't go on YouTube. Some of them just prefer to read the book themselves, and they're going to get no information from the book.
Yeah, I mean, I feel safe about AOS right now because I feel like the edition just started. They're probably going to stick to the standard they've set with the 2 new books, and the new books are great.
Yeah.
The old world's going to be really interesting. Like I think for them, they're going to want to go crazy heavy on the lore because that's where they think the interest is. Like I honestly,
it's a new universe. Realistically, it's a totally different time period. To get everybody actually enthused and overwrite what forget everything you know. To overwrite everything that's already there, they're going to have to go in with some of the heaviest lore and the best lore ever written, because otherwise they're going to look stupid. And I don't want them to do that. I don't want them to look stupid. I want them to succeed. But they've got to go in heavy with this lore here. The era of the 3 emperors is not that well known as far as I know.
Yeah.
Well, so the era we're going into is going to focus more around the Great War against Chaos, which it's like literally one of the most important moments in Warhammer Fantasy, and there is nothing on it.
Yeah.
Like it is. Games Workshop just skipped it always. Like they would very broad brushstroke, like this is kind of what happened, and that's it. There are no details. So like it's literally an open book for them to do whatever they want.
The most you get from it in terms of lore is possibly the RPG book for Kislev, because obviously that had to deal with a lot of the fighting was in Kislev.
Yeah, that's over 20 years old now.
Yeah, that's it.
And like Kislev is going to be playable. Crazy. Crazy.
Crazy good.
Oh yeah, no, I'm excited.
Oh yeah.
Like, wow.
There's going to be a weird thing with Kislev. Like I love Kislev, but then if we're seeing I don't know, man. Every time I saw a bear in the trailer, I died inside.
Fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
So many bears.
It'll be fine. Like they hear everybody complaining. It'll be. It'll be... All right.
Did I just copy the Mantic bears? Oh, I didn't say that.
Here, just don't put your guys on bears. Like, it's fine. You could just not take that option. It's fine. I just need Katarina to get her sled. I don't even give a shit about the other stuff. I just need her sled. But yeah, I mean, so maybe to kind of give a positive angle for anyone listening, is there any stuff maybe coming up in the future about 40K that y'all are super excited and looking forward to? Like, is there anything that y'all have heard about? Any rumors on the horizon that you're looking at?
Whoa. Just because I'm an old sod who occasionally has a moan, I will refer back to being English. This is, it's my God-given right to moan. Are there good things coming up? When are there not good things coming up? I mean, the amount of models that come out on a regular basis for most sets, you'd be happy with. Obviously, you're very well situated. I mean, at any time, they could bring back any of the Loyalist or Demon Primarchs.
Whoa.
There are strong rumors we're going to get Eldar coming, and even if we don't, there are strong rumors we're going to get the Cornates themselves.
Yeah, the World Eaters.
The World Eaters.
Oh yeah,
There's
World Eaters.
What's going on? Obviously, when you look at Marathi, the figure, all you have to say to yourself is, surely that's Fulgrim, really? I mean, that can't be too far away. I mean, they're bringing out a lot of books. They're really kicking in. I mean, some of the most exciting stuff's happening 30K probably, because we're coming to the end of that run. And it's going to actually be seismic across the entirety of Warhammer 40K, because it's very, very likely, almost 100% guaranteed, that they're going to put in changes and subvert expectations, whether you like that or not, when it comes down to the conclusion to the Siege of Terror. And that will change things. So is this something exciting? To be honest, most weeks. All right, fair enough. If you don't like Space Marines, most months then. But are they knocking out the park? Yes, they are. And that's while they've got COVID going, the situation going on and other things. So you can moan all day for hours on end. But is the future bright? Yeah, it is. It's really good. The models are fantastic. Carry on.
What are you most excited to see? pick one.
Eldar. If they had new Eldar, I would like to see an avatar of Kane that could walk and chew gum at the same time. I'd like a big model, something akin to, say, the Silent King. I would like something absolutely horrific. And they're also talking about some of the non-released Phoenix Lords coming out, like Lacoste of the Warp Spiders. So yeah, I'm all my moaning aside, again, you just have to put that off to being British. Is Warhammer 40K in a strong place? Yes, it bloody well is. It's great.
That's just being like a fan of anything Games Workshop does. Like if you're a fan of something Games Workshop does, you probably love it, but you're also probably bitching about it most of the time.
The problem is,
it's just the way it is.
We see what they're capable of. So when they
exactly.
put their fingers in their butts and sit down on them for the rest of the time, you're like, oh, come on. Just take one guy off Space Marines. Just one guy and get making other things. Please. So, but again, that's why we get frustrated with them, because when they do it right, they knock it out of the path. And there's not a company on the planet that can touch them with a barge pole. When they do it wrong, every other company goes, again, drunk Uncle GW. When they're great, they're the center of attention. They're the life of the party. When they're bad, they are very, very annoying.
Yeah, like I've been loving what they did to the Necrons and Orcs. Like all the new stuff is so badass looking, and I'm just really hoping most, if not all, of the Xenos races get that treatment. Like 9th edition would go down as legendary if nearly every Xenos got that level of an update.
Yeah, I don't think Drakari will, Dark Eldar, because they've already had their codex. I think it's only the things that are coming out without a codex yet, which are possibly going to have some very nice stuff. But again, we don't know how long the edition's going to be because of the event. The actual edition changes have been getting closer and closer, unless of course you ignore 6th and step over to 7th, which was devastatingly fast. I was more than a bit annoyed when they did that. But I personally believe they're moving in the right direction. At least we don't have the formations BS that we had about 5 years ago, which just wrecked the game. You know, if you get 5 of our most expensive models, you can put 12 more of our most expensive models out for free. You know, get lost, you know. But I honestly think that, okay, company politics and all the rest of it aside, they're really trying.
Yeah.
And it's going in the right direction.
It's
What about you, Nathan?
It's a good addition. I'm still waiting and crying in the corner until eventually, when I die of old age, we will see a Emperor's Children Codex. Because I am fed up of using freaking Finecast.
Yeah.
Fucking pieces that don't fit well with the current Space Marines, for current Chaos Space Marines.
No, they don't.
It's a massive shame because there was obviously that leak a few years back of a Fulgrim, and no idea what happened there. There's rumors that apparently the cast broke, which, hey, these things happen, but we need our own thing. Like, we've had Thousand Sons and Death Guard having the fucking spotlight for ages. Let's give World Eaters and Emperor's Children a big push, see what they could do. And, you know, we're hearing loads of rumors of this massive overhaul to the Chaos line, which would be incredible, because if that is true, like, damn, I can't wait, because we all hear all these little tidbits in the grapevine and so on, you know, and the Chaos roster needs a change. Like, I want to see Traitor Guard. I want to see basic. I don't want to see. I want to see the Traitor Guard from the Blackstone Fortress kit, but just not monopose, because those are gorgeous minis.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you on that. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got to agree with you on that. I mean, realistically, there's no reason why they can't have Traitor Guard. I mean, that's going to be an absolute money sink for them as well, as in, a money market for them as well, because a Guard army, oh, come on, you're going to at least 10 minimum units of infantry on that little puppy. But what I would say is, Chaos Space Marines, have you actually picked up the new ones? The ones which were in that box, I think it was Black Legion?
Yeah. It's
I didn't think much of them on the screen, and then when I actually played someone and they had them painted up nice, I've got to admit they are some of the best models out there.
Yeah,
they look amazing. So yeah, if we can just get them for our World Eaters and for our Emperor's Children, I'm all shades of happy.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that can be done. I've got a lot of the new models that can't be seen, but they're actually primed in black on the top there, because I was actually preparing them for. Because I was thinking of finishing off a small force of Black Legion for Crusade, funny enough. But, like they are great models. Like, the new Havocs look amazing, right? Like, they're just top-tier cast. But we still need to wait for just basic stuff, which is frustrating, because we need we need new Chaos. Chaos really needs an overhaul. They've been getting a lot of good minis, but, like, we need not a basic Chaos Land Raider. We need a Chaos Impulsor or whatever. You know, give us something. Give us some proper big DACA, and, like, give us a reason to play as them, because one wound is breaks my heart, man.
It's offensive now.
Yeah,
it's offensive.
Well, I will say, from an AOS perspective, it does seem very likely that GW, like those, obviously we've heard some very reliable rumors from the people that are all up in those reliable rumor mills about the other Chaos sub-factions, like the Coronates and the Slaneshi guys. But it would line up with kind of what they, like in AOS, they've literally gotten to the point where they're bringing out models that have been, like, fantasy fans have been waiting on for ever since, like, 3rd or 4th edition, where Slongors and Zongors are in the game, and it's pretty much guaranteed that Pestigors and Korngors are coming around the corner. Yeah. Where, like, they're filling out all of these different factions, and they're really updating Chaos and AOS. It only makes sense that they would be doing it simultaneously for 40k, not release wise, but, like, working on it in the same sphere. And it like I'm really hoping, like, I can't even imagine how many people would be excited, especially for like Angron and Fulgrim, and especially like when everyone saw Morthy with her, essentially her giant snake version, and everyone saw Sigvald, then they're just like, come on, come on.
Exactly.
Keep
like,
in
you
mind,
basically made him twice. just lose it.
keep in mind that the skeletons from those two models might end up being what forms Fulgrim, because if you look at the Start Collecting Chaos kit, the new Obliterators, right? It's literally the same basic framework that was used originally on the Storm Fiends. It's the same poses too.
Oh yeah. But I mean, a lot of their stuff, when you actually played a little bit of Fantasy, a little bit of Age of Sigmar, and a little bit of Warhammer 40k, you're like, yeah, there's not that much difference in the ranges when you look at it. People will bring out a new mod, you're like, oh my god, it's amazing. And then you go, okay, here's a little pen, and this bit's from this bit, and this bit's from this bit, and this bit's from this bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. Any meal is exactly the same thing, you know, getting the right elements in there. But when they turn around and say, oh, it takes the meons to do it, I'm like, well, give me, you know, I don't know, 12 lagers or 6 ciders, give me the computer, someone who can work it, and we'll knock out about 3 ranges. You know, it's not as difficult as they say it is anymore. This is mix and match with figures, patterns on a computer. It's not like getting an individual in and individually sculpting everything perfectly every time now, is it? So the Emperor's Clothes is coming into a position a little bit here, and I love Games Workshop, but they got to start to admitting that technology exists, that they use it, and perhaps that, you know, they could pay their guys a little bit better. But whatever, you know.
Yeah, I know. For me personally, I have like an army of Tyranids up in that closet, mostly unassembled. But like, you know, there are days I hear the hive mind calling to me, but I know the big thing for me is I'm waiting for like a really exciting special character model, because that's what I love about armies, are special characters. Like you can see, I've got Lady Allender right here behind my shoulder, who's my favorite character in the game for Night Haunt. But like, I'll tell you what, if they come out with a new Swarmlord mini, like if the Swarmlord mutates and he gets bigger and badder, I don't know. I don't think I could say no to that. Yeah. I don't think I could, like.
Ned's cool.
I want him. I want him to.
I'm with you. Yeah.
I want him to eat something to get big. Like, I want him to have wings, and I want him to be big and fucking scary.
Yep, that's fair. And I'd be right there with you, because I play Nids too.
But I don't know how true the rumors are, but I keep hearing them about squats being rebranded, which would be just wild.
They kept hinting, didn't they?
Sorry?
They've kept hinting to squats, haven't they? Like recent times.
They've also brought 2 back into one of the skirmish games.
Necromunda, didn't they?
Yeah, there's a squat Necromunda.
So, I mean, they can do it. My problem has always been the visual lexicon. They killed off squats. One of the strongest reasons, I think, in my mind, was to separate the two. Oh, Warhammer 40? What is that? Dwarves in space? No, it isn't. They aren't dwarves. So, whereas realistically, they could do it again at any time. But the problem is, with all of the dwarves, you've got Saxon and Nordic iconography and feel, haven't you?
Yeah.
Well, that's the Space Wolves. So where they go with that?
They have to, because we know they're working on Chaos Dwarfs for Age of Sigmar, which are a faction that a lot of people are super excited for, because they haven't had like a proper army book in ages.
Yeah.
I mean, ages.
I've got to admit, Chaos Dwarves might actually get me interested in Age of Sigmar. I've got to admit, it might.
Yeah, because I mean, the new Oric book like literally just talks about them very openly, so we know they're coming. It's just kind of a matter of when. But that would be such a funny, like, the year of prophecies of us getting Chaos Dwarves in Fantasy and then Squats in 40k would be like
it would
the return of the squatted.
It would make money.
I would love that. I would have a party if they brought back the squats. Full stop. I honestly would, mate.
Hopefully they don't call them squats. They need a spicier name.
Oh no, they're definitely going to change the name, the background, everything else. Like, I think they're going to go with the Demiurge model. which is them being affiliated with the tower and basically space miners. You know, it's very high tech. Again, it kind of when I saw the Caradron, I was like, oh come on.
Oh yeah, the Caradron Overlords. You know.
Come on, give us our squats back, you bastards.
Yeah, the Caradron Overlords have crazy technology for a fantasy-based game.
I know, but if you just look at them, they're squats, aren't they? I mean, you know, they've got big pistols, they've got metal.
So they look great. They look great. they're pretty awesome.
Now, I personally don't like Skydwalls, but that's me being one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll have to see. Anyway, I think we are just about out of time. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Real quick, as we're kind of wrapping up here, Baltimore, you got any closing thoughts? Anything on your mind as we're closing up shop?
Oh, sorry for talking too much. I do apologise. I chunked down a load of coffee before coming on. So
it's the point of the show. Why are you apologizing? You're the special guest. You're supposed to be talking.
Exactly.
I don't do these things very often, so I think this is the first time I've been live this year. So thank you very much for your patience, gents, and of course for the invite. It was wonderful to work with you finally, gents.
It's always awesome to speak to you, Baldy.
Yes. It's been an absolute blast. We really appreciate you joining us on here, and for anyone that hasn't, please do check out Baldemort on the YouTubes. You got any big projects or anything coming up you want people to know about?
Every time I say which project I'm working on, it goes completely tits up. So I'm going to keep my own counsel and say I'm working hard. That's all. What's coming up, Sote?
I know exactly, man. I can already see people are going to be commenting "queek" in my, in my chat here in a second. I know how you feel. But yeah, please do check him out if you haven't already. Nathan, closing thoughts. What are you working on? Anything coming up? Yada yada.
I'm picking it up. Give me a second. I've got tiny hands.
You have no idea. My hands are smaller, I can assure you. Oh.
Mostly Slaaneshi stuff. A bunch of Hellstriders and a bunch of Chaos Warriors. I am determined to finish the army by the end of the year.
Yep, fair.
Oh, dude, so that actually just reminded me. Super random aside, Nathan. Totally random one. But I wanted to tell you just because I think you'd find it cool. But a friend of mine actually ran Slaanesh Warriors back in 8th edition.
Ooh.
When we went to tournaments and stuff. And the kit bash he did that I thought you might find kind of fun is he wanted to run a Chaos Lord on Chaos Dragon, and then he ran Juggernauts, right? But to make him Slaaneshi, what he did is he had his army under the theme that they were very opulent. So they were like gold and gems, and like he bought little like slabs of marble, so they were all walking on marble terrain,
nice.
Like a marble floor. But what he did is for the dragon, because Chaos Dragons have 2 heads, and they had like 2 different breath weapons, so you had to have the double head. What he did is he bought the Zombie Dragon kit, the Zombie Dragon Terrorgeist kit, and he painted it up as a construct made out of like gold and jewels and stuff. So all the bones were like made of rare metals instead of bone and flesh and stuff. So it was like this giant golden god zombie dragon. But he used it where one head was the zombie dragon, then green stuff, the Terrorgeist head is the other head. And then for his Juggernauts of Khorne, what he did is he took Chaos Knights and he put them on Tyrannid Raveners.
Mm-hmm.
So the snake-like guys with the sickle arm to fit in with the serpent guy theme.
It
was a very cool looking army. I just remembered.
That's pretty cool. That is honestly really, really cool. See,
awesome.
I'm trying to make sure that the whole Hedonite range is used. So I've actually got a bunch of minis, and I'm like the shield's just come off because I had to take it off so I could. So I can paint the back of the shield.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was actually going to say earlier that I forgot is the biggest thing for me when it comes to 40K is I really want to see the Emperor's Chosen, is that what they're called? The Sons of the Emperor or Emperor's Sons or whatever they are, the Slaaneshi 40K guys?
Emperor's Children.
Yeah, Emperor's Children. I really want to see them because like AOS showed Games Workshop's new interpretation of Slaanesh, which is just so much better than the old one. and I'm really curious how they would apply that to 40k, because their approach to Slaanesh is just so much more interesting than it used to be.
Yeah. For myself, I always think they don't go far enough, but chaos is not for kids. And unfortunately, that's always going to be a situation. I do get some hate mail every now and again saying, they're not evil, no, you shouldn't be so mean. I'm like, no, they are evil. Just because the good guys aren't so good doesn't mean the bad guys aren't just as bad. Yeah. In fact, they're much worse than most cinematic or universe evil by a long, long chalk. So I get a bit tired of the sanitization of it, you know? Oh no, my space mare's just a bit angry. No, he's a worshipful. He's not just having a bad day. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Interpretation. So I hope they don't sanitize it too much.
My coronates just have a case of the Mondays.
Yeah,
but, like,
exactly.
I mean, in AOS Slaanesh, we literally got a hero model that is a demon playing a harp that is made out of a guy's spinal cord and shoulder muscles. Like, that model is grotesque.
Yeah, we can use that in ours as well. You've got chaos demons in.
Demons go everywhere. Demons are the cheapest army if you want to play all 3 games.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, and then for me, anyone that's curious or listening, LoremasterOfSotek working on painting and stuff. Don't forget about Tale 2 Gamers, guys. Next week, units due. I should have some videos coming out this week. Probably going to be mostly Cathay related. Might get something else or 2 out there. But that's going to be it for us today, unless anyone else has got anything else that I forgot.
I think we're all good.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to go ahead and jump out of the call so I can do my say bye and deal all that with that crap. Thank you both so much for being here today. It was a pleasure to discuss chatting with y'all, and I'll be typing afterwards. But I'll see y'all in a little while.
Cool.
Have a wonderful weekend and night.
And my viewers, I'm just going to pass over a link over here so you guys can go check out Mercy the Mad, who's doing a co-op stream, but I'm just seeing a lot of Andy Jones stuff, so I'm not too sure what that means. Let's just pass this here. There's the link. Enjoy, guys, and I shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.